I refused to babysit my sister's twins, so she used them to sabotage my passport the night before my flight. Mom blamed me until Dad asked the boys who told them to. Their answer cost my sister $200,000 and every excuse she ever used. Hey Reddit! My family spent years treating me like I was born to be my sister's backup parent. I finally put my foot down, planned my own life, and decided I wasn't going to be their built-in babysitter anymore. But trust me, those people weren't done trying to pull me back. Before all that went down, here's where it actually started. My name's Joel. I'm 22, finishing my last semester of college, and yeah, I still live at home for the moment. Before anyone judges, rent in my area is basically a punishment, and I've been juggling classes plus a part-time IT job. My family's the kind where the roles never change. My mom, Patty, is the general. My dad, Greg, stays quiet behind her, nodding along just to keep the house calm. And my older sister, Ellie, she's the favorite, always has been, always will be. At our place, nobody really knocks. Patty keeps a spare key for Ellie, and Ellie has the garage code, so they come and go like it's their second house. This whole babysitting thing started when I was a freshman. Ellie showed up one day holding her twins, Luke and Owen, saying she needed just an hour to deal with something urgent. I was 18, still dumb enough to think family emergencies were real emergencies, so I said sure. 1 hour became 3. 3 turned into, hey, I'll grab them later. Grab them later turned into 9 at night. That day set the standard. The twins were brand new then, more blanket than toddler. But here's the thing, I actually like the twins. They're good kids. Wild, but good. I didn't mind helping sometimes. I just didn't sign up to be Ellie's unpaid full-time childcare plan. So pretty early on, I set rules. Stuff like, text me first, don't just show up, tell me how long, no dropping them off when I have exams. Basic respect. Ellie ignored all of it. The more I pushed back, the more Mom treated it like I was the one being dramatic. Patty acts like Ellie is made of glass. Anything she needs becomes the entire family's responsibility. If Ellie sighs, Patty's already making excuses for why nobody should challenge her. And if Ellie says she needs help, Patty turns to me like I'm the family intern. It didn't matter how many times I repeated the rules. Ellie would show up anyway. If I said no, Patty stepped in with stuff like, Joel, don't make this harder on your sister. She has so much on her shoulders. Meanwhile, Dad would stand behind her with that empty stare like he'd rather be anywhere else but can't risk contradicting her. So yeah, I started realizing I wasn't being asked. I was being assigned. By my junior year, I was fed up. By then the twins were full-on dinosaur-obsessed toddlers. Fast, loud, and into everything. Between classes, work, and trying to have some sort of normal life, I was done being the yes man. I started telling Ellie no more often. Not rude, just firm. If she showed up without warning, I didn't open the door. If she called last minute, I said, can't, busy. Patty hated it. Ellie hated it more. And then came the day Ellie decided to test me. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was finishing an assignment when Ellie called me absolutely hysterical. Like crying, voice shaking, the whole thing. Joel, please, Brandon's in the ER. I need you now. Please get here. I don't know what to do. Brandon is her husband. I grabbed my keys and drove across town, breaking every speed suggestion. My chest was tight the whole way. Brandon might not be my favorite person, but he's the twins' dad. I didn't want them going through something horrible. I ran up to Ellie's front door, didn't even knock, just went straight in. And there was Brandon, sitting on the living room floor, playing dinosaurs with Luke and Owen. Perfectly normal, perfectly healthy, perfectly not in an ER. He looked up at me like, what are you doing here? I just stared at him, then at the kids, then back at Brandon. Ellie walked in from the kitchen holding a coffee mug, like this was a calm Sunday morning. What's going on? I asked her, trying to keep my voice level. She shrugged. I needed you here. I blinked. You said Brandon was in the ER. Yeah, well, she said, way too casual. I needed to see if you'd still show up when you say you're busy. Can't rely on you if I don't know where you stand. It took everything in me not to snap right there. My hands literally went cold. I wasn't yelling. I was past yelling. That cold angry where your brain goes quiet and you stop giving people the reactions they think they deserve. You lied about an emergency, I said, to get me here. Ellie gave this annoying shrug-smile combo. Don't be dramatic. The boys missed you, and you've been acting weird lately. I needed to know if you'd bail on family when it matters. I looked at the twins. They were happily smashing plastic dinosaurs, totally unaware they were being used as props in their mom's manipulation routine. I didn't stay. I'm leaving, I said. and walked out before I did or said something I couldn't take back. That was the moment I knew Ellie had crossed from inconsiderate to dangerous. If she'd fake someone being in the hospital to get me to babysit, she'd fake anything. And if Patty ever found out, she'd still find a way to defend Ellie and blame me somehow. Graduation was right around the corner, and I told myself, quietly but dead serious, that once college ended, I was done playing these family games. I'd get out, get my own place, and stop letting Ellie pull the strings. But the thing about people like her, they don't let you walk away without yanking the rope one more time. I didn't know it yet, but Ellie wasn't anywhere close to done with me. Finishing my last exam felt like someone finally took a weight off my back. 4 years of juggling school, work, and Ellie's random "Joel, I need you" calls were over. A bunch of my friends, Jake, Claire, Bruce, and Megan, were all graduating too, and everyone was talking about how this was our last real chance to do something together before people move for jobs or grad school. We met up at our usual cafe to celebrate. Someone tossed out the idea of a group trip, and before I even thought it through, I said, "What about Italy?" I'd always wanted to see Rome's old architecture in person, visit Florence, maybe go to a stadium tour if we made it to Milan. Stuff I used to watch videos about at 2 in the morning to avoid doing homework. Everyone jumped on the idea immediately. They started pulling up flights and Airbnb listings on their phones like it was nothing. Normally I'd be the one thinking, yeah, cool, but I can't afford that. But my grandma Marjorie had given me a graduation gift big enough to make the trip actually possible. She'd always told me travel was something I'd never regret spending money on. By the time we were done, we had everything booked. Flights, places to stay, rough itinerary, all set for the second week of July. I walked out of that cafe buzzing. It finally felt like I was planning something for myself, instead of working my whole life around Ellie's demands. When I got home, the smell of Patty's cooking hit me before I even stepped inside. We were having a family dinner, which usually meant Ellie and the twins were coming over. I didn't mind the twins, but these dinners always turned into Ellie dominating the conversation, and Patty nodding along like everything Ellie said was the smartest thing ever spoken. I headed to my room to drop my bag off and heard Patty talking in the hallway. Not just talking, whispering. I paused. Her voice was soft but clear enough that I caught parts of it. Yes, second week of July. No, he hasn't told us yet, but I'm sure he'll watch them. Well, you said your trip was already booked, so don't worry. Yes, he'll understand. I froze for a second. She paused, then added, Ellie, I'll talk to him. Don't stress. I didn't move. Patty wasn't asking if I was free. She was confirming it. Like my entire summer schedule was a blank page that Ellie could start drawing on whenever she felt like it. I stepped quietly back into my room and shut the door. I didn't say anything, because there was nothing to say yet. I just registered it. The warning sign. The same pattern. Ellie planning her life, Patty adjusting mine to fit it. No hesitation. I told myself I'd handle it at dinner. When we sat down at the table later, it started off normal. Ellie was going on about some home improvement project Brandon didn't finish correctly. Patty was giving her the usual supportive nods. Greg was staring at his plate like he wished he could mentally teleport somewhere else. I waited until we were halfway into eating before I said it. So, I'm going to Italy with some friends in July. The room stopped moving for a second. Ellie's fork paused midair. Patty blinked. Greg looked up like he wasn't sure he heard me right. Ellie was the first to react. July? Her voice was sharp, almost offended. What week? Second week, I said. We already booked everything. Ellie sat back like I'd insulted her personally. Are you serious? That's the week we're going on vacation. Patty jumped in immediately, as if she'd been waiting to pounce. Joel, why didn't you check with your sister first? You know she needs help with the boys. I looked between the two of them. Ellie glaring, Patty disappointed. Greg was staring at his water glass again, avoiding getting dragged into anything. I didn't check, I said plainly, because I'm not the one going on vacation with 2 kids. I'm going on my own trip. Ellie scoffed. You knew we were planning something. You picked that week on purpose. No, I said. I've literally been talking about wanting to go to Italy since freshman year. Patty shook her head like she couldn't understand how someone could be so selfish. Joel, you know Ellie and Brandon barely get any time together. She needs support. There it was. Support. That word always meant I was supposed to drop my entire life for Ellie's convenience. I kept it simple. Well, my trip's booked. Ellie stared at me like I'd spit in her food. Patty's face tightened. Greg inhaled slowly through his nose like he could feel the storm forming, but wasn't going to speak against Patty. Nobody said anything else. We finished dinner with the kind of stiff silence that fills a room all the way to the ceiling. I didn't need anyone to tell me what was coming. Ellie wasn't the type to accept boundaries. She was the type to find new ways around them. As soon as she pushed her chair back and grabbed her bag, I knew. Tonight wasn't the fight. The next morning, I was getting ready for class. It wasn't even 8 yet. I heard my doorbell ring once, sharp. Before I could even get to the hallway, the front door opened. 2 backpacks hit the floor. Luke and Owen tumbled inside like excited puppies. Ellie shoved them in, said, "Thanks," and was already halfway down the stairs. "Ellie!" I called out. She didn't turn around. She didn't slow down. She hit her car door, got in, and drove off without a single word. I looked at the twins. They were smiling like this was a surprise playdate. They had no idea their mom had just dumped them and run. I checked the time. I had class and then a shift at work. There was no universe where I could watch them today. So I grabbed my phone and called Ellie. No answer. Called again. Nothing. I tried Brandon. He picked up sounding annoyed already. "Hey, I've got the boys here," I said. "I can't watch them today." Brandon sighed loud enough to rattle my eardrum. Yeah. Ellie said something about needing to run errands. "I'm at work, man." "Then can you call her?" I asked. Yeah. I'm kinda busy." And he hung up. I stared at my phone for a second. Then I called the last person I wanted to involve. Patty. She answered instantly. "Joel, what's the problem now?" "Ellie dropped the boys off and left," I said. "I have class. I can't keep them today." Patty didn't miss a beat. "Well, you'll have to. Ellie needed help. I don't have time." "Joel," she said, voice hardening. "Your sister is dealing with enough. We are not doing this right now. You'll keep the boys just this time." She paused, then added the line that told me exactly where I stood in her world. "If you leave us hanging like this, don't expect a welcome here." I looked at the twins again. They were sitting on the floor, talking to each other, totally oblivious. Okay, not agreeing, not forgiving. Just done fighting a battle nobody intended to fight fair. Patty hung up like she'd won something. Greg didn't even come out of the bedroom. Probably heard the whole thing through the walls and still stayed silent. Ellie didn't text me that day, or the day after. She went quiet. Completely quiet. That silence never meant things were good. It meant she was planning something worse. The week before my flight, I was doing what everyone does before a big trip. Packing, repacking, checking lists, double-checking lists. I kept my suitcase in the corner of my room, half-zipped, with all my travel stuff stacked neatly beside it. Italy was supposed to be the first real thing I did for myself, after years of being dragged into Ellie's emergencies. 3 days before the trip, I walked into my room and noticed something small, but off. My suitcase was shifted. Not a big move, maybe a foot, and the front pocket was unzipped even though I knew I'd left it closed. My travel folder, the one with my printed bookings and photocopies of my documents, was slightly open too. Patty has a habit of tidying my room when I am out, and Patty keeps a key while Ellie has the garage code. So I told myself it was just them straightening things. Nothing was missing when I checked. Everything was still there. I told myself not to overthink it. After years in this house, little things were always getting moved. Still, something about it sat wrong. It felt like someone had been testing boundaries again, but I pushed the thought away. I was leaving in a few days. I didn't want to get sucked back into Ellie's nonsense. The day before my flight, I went to the store for the last round of stuff. Chargers, a new lock for my suitcase, toiletries, all the random things you swear you won't forget and always forget anyway. I was only gone for about an hour. When I came home, the house was strangely quiet. Not silent, just that weird, muffled calm where you can tell someone is definitely here but not talking. I stepped inside, dropped the shopping bag on the counter, and heard giggling from the living room. Kid giggling. My stomach tightened immediately. I didn't expect anyone to be here. I walked into the living room and saw Luke and Owen on the carpet, surrounded by markers and scraps of paper. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I saw what was in Owen's hand. My passport. My actual real passport that I had kept zipped in a folder, inside a second pocket, inside my suitcase. Luke was holding scissors, kitchen scissors, bigger than his hands. The boys had bright marker streaks all over their fingers. They looked up at me like they'd just made me a beautiful drawing. "Uncle Joel, look," Owen said, holding the passport toward me proudly. I stepped forward fast. They flinched a little, not scared, just startled by how quickly I grabbed it. The first thing I saw was the photo page. The picture had been cut cleanly out. Not torn. Cut. The edges were smooth, like someone held it steady for them. The rest of the passport was covered in marker. Every page. Random swirls, scribbles, lines. Stamps ruined. The whole booklet basically turned into a craft project. My chest didn't explode. My voice didn't crack. I didn't yell. Everything went cold. This wasn't kids getting into something. This wasn't an accident. Luke and Owen aren't capable of digging through a suitcase, opening folders, pulling out a passport, and using scissors with precision. Someone handed them everything. The boys were preschooler age, old enough to handle safety scissors with help, not kitchen shears on their own. Someone set this up. I took a slow breath and said, "Where's your mom?" They shrugged like they were in the middle of playtime. I didn't even hear Ellie come in behind me. She walked in from the hallway with her phone in her hand, like she'd been waiting for the right moment. "Oh my God," she said, way too dramatic. "Joel, what happened?" Her face was arranged perfectly. Big eyes, hand over chest, the whole shocked sister act. It was the fakest thing I'd seen in my life. I held up the ruined passport in one hand. "You want to tell me why your kids had this?" Ellie pressed her lips together like she was trying to hide a smile. "Joel, don't jump to conclusions. They're just kids. You must have left it out." "I didn't leave anything out," I said. "This was inside my suitcase." "Well," she said, "maybe they were playing around and found it. Kids get into things." I looked down at the clean, perfect cut around my photo. Kids don't make ruler straight cuts with full-size kitchen shears. Someone put the scissors in their hands and steadied the page. "You need to calm down before you say something you regret," she added, putting a hand on her hip like she was the parent in the situation. I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to say anything yet. My head was too focused on the facts. My suitcase had been opened before, and now my passport was destroyed. Ellie was here. Luke and Owen were here. And Ellie was acting like she rehearsed her lines in the car. The boys went back to coloring, totally oblivious to what they'd just been used for. I stared at Ellie. She stared back, eyebrows tilted in that innocent victim pose she loves so much. "Unbelievable," I said quietly. Her expression flickered for half a second, like she didn't expect me to catch the act that fast. Then she went right back to her fake shock. "Joel," she said, voice soft and syrupy, "don't blame them. They didn't mean to ruin your little booklet." I was still holding what used to be my passport when Patty came rushing into the living room. She must have heard my voice from the hallway because she walked in already worked up. "What's going on?" she asked, scanning the mess. Then she saw the passport. "Joel, how could you leave something like that lying around when the boys are here?" I didn't even get a breath before Ellie jumped in, sounding relieved for backup. "Exactly. I told him he needs to be more careful. The twins didn't mean to do anything. Joel's the one who left it where they could get it." I stared at Ellie. She stared right back like she expected me to fold and apologize. "I didn't leave anything out," I said. "It was in my suitcase." Patty waved that off immediately. "Well, obviously you didn't secure it properly if the boys found it. They get into everything." Ellie nodded fast. "It was an accident. A total accident. Nobody meant to ruin anything." Then she shifted gears so quickly, it was almost impressive. She took a shaky breath, put a hand on her chest, and her voice suddenly cracked. "Joel, I'm sorry, okay?" Patty turned toward her instantly, concern rising like she'd been waiting for Ellie to cry. Ellie stepped closer to Patty and leaned into her like a child. "I didn't want this," Ellie said, tears sliding right on cue. "I just wanted the boys to spend time with their uncle before our trip. I didn't think he'd be so irresponsible. But if Joel can just stay with them while we're gone, then I can forgive him. I'm trying to be the bigger person. Forgive me. For her kids destroying my passport." Patty actually nodded, rubbing Ellie's back. "That's very mature of you, sweetheart. Joel, listen to your sister. She's trying to make peace." Ellie sniffled loudly and shot me a quick glance, the kind that said she thought she had already won. To her, this was the moment I'd bend, just like always. I wasn't bending. I didn't argue. I didn't get loud. I didn't explain myself for the 100th time. I just turned toward Luke and Owen, who were still occupied with their markers. "Hey," I said quietly, "where'd you get this?" Both boys looked up at me. They glanced at each other, then Luke pointed at Ellie without hesitation. "Mommy gave it to us," he said proudly. Ellie froze. Owen nodded, kicking his feet. "Yeah, Mommy said to cut the picture out because it was funny." I felt Patty stiffen. Ellie's eyes widened a fraction. "And the scissors?" I asked. "Mommy gave us the big ones," Luke said. "She said it was okay." Owen added, "She gave us the colors too. She said to make it pretty." That was it. Their little voices just ringing through the living room, totally honest. Ellie sucked in a sharp breath, panic creeping into her expression for the first time. Patty stepped forward fast. "Boys, no, you misunderstood. You're confused. You don't know what you're saying." She actually tried to guide Owen away by the shoulders. But he wasn't finished. "No, Grandma," he insisted. "Mommy gave it to us." Patty gave me a quick glare, like I must have planted the idea in their head somehow. Ellie swallowed hard and jumped in next. "Joel must have joked about his picture earlier," she said quickly. "Maybe he said something about cutting it out and the boys copied him. Kids repeat stuff." I raised an eyebrow. I didn't joke about anything. Ellie laughed nervously. The panic behind it too obvious. Joel, come on. You say things. You don't even realize. They probably misunderstood. They didn't misunderstand, I said. Her eyes flicked down to my hand. The hand holding the passport. The proof. The thing she couldn't talk her way around. Then, without warning, she lunged for it. Let me see that! She reached fast, fingers stretching toward the booklet like she planned to grab it and tear it in half. Probably planned to claim it was already like that, or hide it, or flush it down a toilet. Who knows? I stepped back, moved my arm just enough, and blocked her with a calm, firm hand on her shoulder. Not hard, not aggressive, just unmovable. Don't, I said quietly. Ellie stopped like she'd hit a wall. For the first time, her eyes showed something real. Fear. Patty gasped like I'd shoved Ellie across the room. Joel, don't you dare put your hands on your sister. I'm not, I said. I'm stopping her from destroying more evidence. Ellie opened her mouth, closed it again, and looked around the room like she wanted someone to rescue her. Patty tried. Ellie would never do something like this. The boys are just confused. You're twisting everything. I didn't answer her. I didn't need to. Luke and Owen were already going back to their coloring, humming to themselves, totally unaware they'd just blown the entire situation wide open. Patty was breathing fast. Ellie was trembling with a mix of anger and embarrassment, and the air in the room felt like it was thick enough to cut with the scissors still lying on the floor. Then I glanced toward the hallway. Greg was standing there. For once, he wasn't staring at the carpet or at his shoes. He wasn't hiding behind Patty's shoulder. He was watching Ellie, and the look on his face wasn't confusion or discomfort. It was anger, real anger, the kind that comes from years of swallowing everything until your teeth hurt from clenching. The room went silent except for the sound of Luke tapping a marker on the carpet. Ellie saw Greg's face, and she knew something was about to break. Dad, she said softly. Joel's twisting. This isn't the first time you've done something like this. Greg's voice cut through the room so suddenly that everyone froze. Even the twins looked up. Patty blinked at him. Greg, what are you? He stepped forward. Ellie, do you remember when you told your cousin Rachel she couldn't bring her boyfriend to Thanksgiving because he made you uncomfortable? He didn't wait for her answer. And then we found out you only said it because you didn't want her showing up with someone you thought would get more attention than you. Ellie's face went pale. That was years ago. Or the time you told your Aunt Eva that Joel volunteered to pay for the car repairs you caused. And when she confronted him, you said he forgot, he offered? Greg continued. You've been pulling things like this your whole life. You think nobody notices because we don't call you on it. Patty stepped forward. Greg, stop. This is not the time to bring up old stories. Yes, he said. It is exactly the time. The quiet, passive husband was gone. His voice was sharp and steady, and he wasn't looking at Patty for approval. He was looking at Ellie like she finally ran out of room to hide. You gave your boys scissors and told them to cut up something important to him, Greg said. You lied about it. You blamed Joel. And you let Patty believe he caused the mess? Like always. Ellie shook her head fast. No, Dad, I swear. Don't. He lifted a hand. Don't insult all of us by pretending you didn't do this on purpose. Patty jumped between them like she could shove his words back into his mouth. Greg, you are misunderstanding. I'm not misunderstanding anything, he snapped. I've kept quiet for years because you insisted staying peaceful was more important than being honest. But I'm done watching this. Patty looked stunned, as if she'd never considered the possibility that Greg could disagree with her in public. Ellie tried again. Dad, I didn't... Yes, you did, Greg said. And you've been using your kids as leverage since the day they were born. You treat Joel like a tool you can pick up and drop whenever you want. That ends today. I watched Ellie's face twist from shock into anger. Her voice rose. I needed help. He always acts like his life is so difficult. And your solution was to sabotage his trip? Greg shot back. Your brother hasn't had a chance to live his own life because you expect him to drop everything for you. Patty stepped in again, voice trembling. Greg, please calm down. We can fix this later. No, Greg said. Stop trying to smooth it over. You've been protecting Ellie from consequences her entire life. Patty looked like she'd been slapped. I protect my daughter. That's what mothers do. And that's why she keeps doing this, Greg said. Because she knows you'll attack anyone who challenges her. Ellie folded her arms, chin raised. So you're taking his side now? Greg didn't flinch. I'm taking the side that isn't lying. The room went completely silent. Just the soft scratch of a marker as Owen drew on the carpet. Then Greg said the words that changed everything. You know the house money we plan to give you and Brandon? It's not going to you anymore. Ellie's eyes widened. What? Patty's jaw dropped. Greg, absolutely not. Greg kept going. You don't get help buying a house after what you just did. I won't reward behavior like this. You can't do that, Ellie shouted. I can, Greg said. And I will. The money is going to Joel instead. He needs to move out and get away from all this. It felt like the room pulled all the air out at once. Patty turned on him. Gregory, you will not steal her future because of one misunderstanding. It's not one misunderstanding, he said. It's every day for years. Ellie's voice cracked into a screech. If you take his side, you won't see the boys again. The threat hit the room like a hammer. Patty gasped. Ellie, sweetheart. Ellie doubled down. I mean it. If everyone wants to worship Joel so badly, fine. But don't expect me to bring Luke and Owen around. She stood tall, like she'd just played the winning card. Like she thought nobody would dare challenge her when she held her kids like shields. Greg didn't blink. You don't get to weaponize your children because you're caught. They're my kids, Ellie snapped. They're not bargaining chips, Greg said. Patty grabbed Greg's arm. Please, let's calm down. We can give Joel some money too. Just don't do this. No, Greg said. I'm done negotiating. Joel is getting the money. He needs a life that doesn't get dragged into Ellie's mess. Ellie stared at him like he'd betrayed her. Patty stared like she didn't recognize the man next to her. The twins watched quietly, confused but curious, sensing something big but not understanding it. The house felt different. Like something that had been locked up and dusty for years had finally blown open. Patty looked between all of us, her eyes darting like she wanted someone to jump in and fix this, but didn't know who to command anymore. Ellie stood there breathing hard, hands clenched, face bright with anger. And this time, nobody stepped in to rescue her. The fallout wasn't coming. It had already started. The fallout started that same night. Ellie must have grabbed her phone before the tears dried because by the next morning my inbox was a parade of messages from relatives. Aunt Karen, you really hurt your sister. Why would you ruin her chances at getting a home? Cousin Lily, I can't believe you'd turn the family against Ellie over a misunderstanding. Cousin Vanessa, Patty is devastated. Why can't you just apologize? Ellie told her version first. Of course she did. In her version, I screamed at the kids. Dad exploded for no reason. And she tried to apologize, but I wouldn't listen. All the key details removed, all the blame redirected. I didn't respond to any of them. Not out of spite. Just because I was done doing the whole explain myself to people who won't hear it thing. The real conversations had already happened in the living room. The rest was just noise. The Italy trip was obviously delayed. No passport, no flight. My friends didn't even hesitate. They pushed the dates back, helped me figure out the process, and waited it out with zero complaints. It took 5 weeks to get the new passport, but eventually it arrived, crisp and untouched. We were a day out from departure, so we honestly got lucky. Called the airline and the hosts right away, explained the mess, and they bent their policies more than I expected. We moved everything by about 5 weeks. The airline issued credits with a small rebooking fee, our paid time off shifted without drama, and 2 of our Airbnb hosts let us change dates for free, while the third charged a modest change fee. When we finally landed in Rome, I felt something I didn't even recognize at first. Silence. Not the kind tied to tension or waiting for someone to yell my name. The kind you get when nobody expects anything from you. No sudden childcare assignments, no guilt trips from Patty, no demands disguised as emergencies. The trip was simple. Good food, walking until our legs hurt, random jokes, seeing places I'd only seen online. It felt like having a normal life for the first time since I was 18. When I came back home, the biggest change wasn't Italy. The biggest change was the fact that I wasn't going back to Patty and Greg's house. Greg followed through immediately. He started the transfer that same week, but we scheduled the funds to land after I got back from Italy, so I could roll them straight into a lease. Patty tried to slow the process down, tried to bargain, tried to guilt, but Greg didn't budge. I found a small apartment near campus and work. My IT job is in an office just off campus. Nothing fancy, but mine. Ellie went quiet for weeks, until she didn't. One Saturday morning, there was a knock on my apartment door. I opened it expecting a delivery. Instead, I saw Ellie standing there, smiling like we were in some commercial about family bonding. Behind her were Luke and Owen, holding their backpacks, clearly expecting to stay. "Joel," she said brightly. "We were in the neighborhood and thought you might want to spend some time with the boys. Just once. They've missed you." The confidence in her voice was wild. Like everything that happened was a brief inconvenience, and the universe had reset itself in her favor. "No," I said simply. Her smile twitched. "Oh, come on, don't be cold. Just a couple hours." I stepped outside and closed the door halfway behind me, blocking the entrance. Take them home, Ellie. She blinked, confused, like she genuinely never imagined the door wouldn't automatically swing open for her. Joel, seriously, they're already packed. You can't expect me to drag them all the way back? That sounds like a you problem, I said. Her eyes narrowed as she realized this wasn't going the way she planned. I nodded once toward the boys. They're good kids. They deserve a mom who doesn't use them as props. Try that. Before she could answer, I closed the door gently. Not a slam, just a firm end to the conversation. Not even 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a voice note. I pressed play. Luke's voice came through first. Uncle Joel, we're sorry. Please come back. Mommy said you're mad. Then Owen, we miss you. Please see us. The message didn't sound like them. Not really. Their pauses were off, like someone told them exactly what to say. I stared at the floor for a second. I loved those kids. Always had. But pulling at my feelings through them was just another one of Ellie's moves. I didn't reply. A few weeks later came the big family event, Greg's birthday. Everyone was there. Ellie walked in with Luke and Owen like she was the one who needed comforting. Patty hugged her dramatically, whispering to her like they were sharing state secrets. I kept my distance. Not rude, just separate. At one point, Patty waved me over sharply. Joel, talk to your sister. She's hurting. I looked at Ellie. She gave me this wounded stare, the kind people give right before they expect you to cave. Hope you're doing okay, I said politely. That was it. Patty huffed, irritated I wasn't playing along. Ellie pouted. Greg watched from the corner, arms crossed, quietly pleased that things weren't sliding back to the old dynamic. The twins came over to me later, showing me some little toy cars they'd gotten. I knelt down and talked to them, asked about school, listened to their excited rambling. None of this was their fault. They were just caught in the crossfire of adults who couldn't get their act together. But when Ellie tried to use that moment to wedge herself back in, see? They miss you so much. I stood up and stepped away. Not angry, just done. For good. Loving the twins didn't mean sacrificing the rest of my life. Setting boundaries didn't mean I stopped caring. And finally having my own place meant the leash had been cut, and staying that way was up to me. Ellie didn't control my time anymore. Patty didn't control the conversations. And I wasn't the built-in babysitter they'd groomed me to be. I loved my family, but I wasn't theirs to use anymore. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.